Hello my lovelies, you're here with Libby Rose, hello! And today we're going to be making a super simple cushion cover. So when you are choosing your fabrics and putting together your piece, just keep in mind that we are making a cushion cover that is standard size 43 centimeters by 43 centimeters. So that is what the insert is. Now the covers, we normally take the cover down at least a centimeter on each side so that when the cover goes on, it squishes in and makes it quite plump. If you've ever put a cushion cover on that is slightly big, it goes quite limp and it's just baggy on the cushion. So we don't really want that. We want it nice and fluffy. So if you're sewing bits together, just think that the front is going to be 43 by 43. If you're using fat quarters, like these are some Hobbycraft fat quarters, if you're using maybe Lincraft or Spotlight for my Australian viewers, or if you're in the UK and you're using maybe some Hobbycraft or any other suppliers fat quarters, you'll be sewing two pieces together to make this work. So when I've done this one with fat quarters, I have got a piece that is 55 and a piece that is 45. Okay, so the seam is, there's one piece 55, one piece 45, so that then I know that that seam is going to run along the bottom of the cushion. Okay, so I've got one side that's longer because that's going to be the envelope over the top, and this side that's shorter, so that will be tucked under, and then this side will go across. So I hope that makes sense. So if you are using fat quarters, so just like I have done, I've cut those out from fat quarters, you will have a ribbon left over that they're normally tied together with, and these are the only parts of scrap that I've got. So I've got one long bit from the side and one bit from the top. So you might want to keep those aside because they'd be useful for another project. Or an optional extra, which I will show you right at the end, would be to make a little tie, or you could use the ribbon to tie it at the back, or to make some little ties at the back of the cushion. But that's entirely up to you, and that is totally optional. I just like to make them, I just find it a bit bulky having, or you could do buttonholes at the back as well. I just find it a little bit bulky, so I just like to keep mine as plain as possible. But of course you can, if you want to get a bit fancy with them too. There is other ideas that you could come up with. You're all quite crafty and artistic, so I'll let your minds run wild with that. But it could be that you have the envelope at the front, you have some fancy buttons that go along the fastening bit or something. Anyway, that's up to you, but I'm just going to show you this quick and easy way of doing the envelope cushion so that you can just have some fun, perhaps make them with your kids, or just make them as a way to just jazz it up at home during these times, which are very trying indeed at times, especially when it's a nice sunshiny day outside and you're indoors. So we just fling the windows open and get sewing. First up, we have our long piece of fabric. Now, if you had to join it together, or if you've had to create yours from maybe some old garments or all sorts that you might have done, we've got that ready now. So we are going to leave the long side for now. We are just dealing with these two shorter sides. So the two width sides, I'm going to take to the ironing board, and I'm going to fold once and once again. So just fold it 1 centimeter and then 1 centimeter again. Now you might find that you can finger press this just fine along there and then get the iron to hold it down. If your fabric is a bit bouncy, then you're going to need to get some pins involved now and pin along there. But mine is nice cottony fabric, so it seems to be finger pressing just fine. So I go it doesn't have to be exact, I say 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter, but you can pretty much eyeball that as I'm doing here. Folding it down once and then once again. So I folded it down 1 centimetre and then folded it on top of itself another 1 centimetre. And then I'm going to use the iron to press that down nice and flat. And we do that on both sides. And then you're going to sew that in place. So now I'm lining up the edge of the foot with the edge of the fabric, and I'm just going to sew along the edge there so it holds those folds in place. So as ever, I start with a little bit of backwards, so 2 stitches backwards, and then we're moving forwards, and I go straight down. As I come to the end, another couple of back stitches, and then I'm ready to do the other side. So now I've got both of the width edges done. I will find this bottom line. So I have done I've joined my fabrics at the bottom there. So if you don't have a bottom crease, if you've just used one full length, then try and find this bottom crease now. So we'll have one length longer. Actually, it might just be easier just to measure that bit of difference. So you want 10 centimeters overlapping here. So if you can see that, I've got 10 centimeters higher on one side, and that's how I know where my bottom crease is. So I'll just make a crease down there, and now I'm going to turn it inside out. So then I fold it into a square. Okay, and inside this 10 centimeter flap is inside here. Okay, that makes sense. So you can see that's 10 centimeters is in there. And this has just folded in on itself. So I folded that down, right sides together, and so then I will have this main piece, the piece folded inside, and then this back piece. So you've got 1, 2, 3 pieces at the top here with 10 centimeters down, and then the rest is a box. So all you're going to do now is do a 1 centimeter seam allowance, closing these in. So you'll see there's just 2 seams here. When you get to the top here, there's 3. 1, 2, 3. One's got a little 10 centimeter flap. It's folded in on itself, okay? You haven't gone over. You've just folded it in back to the same piece of fabric. So now I'm going to go down these 2 sides that are open with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Just 1 centimeter, or even less you can. Edge of the foot against the edge of the fabric is lovely. Again, just don't forget your back stitching. Sometimes when we're doing something nice and quickly, we forget the little things like that. And then again, the other side. Edge of the foot against the edge of the fabric, or 1 centimeter seam allowance. You've got up to 1 centimeter to play with here. Then you might want to trim off your corners. So just ever so close to the stitching, make sure you don't go over the stitching, but you just take a little triangle off those corners, all right? Just up to the stitch line, but not over. just take off a little corner, and that will just give you sharp corners when you turn it through. Now we're going to turn it through. And now you can see what I meant. See, that folds over into the envelope, okay? And poke those corners out. And if they're not making nice sharp corners, you could use a chopstick or a blunt instrument. Don't use your scissors because you'll just poke through if you do. Well, you might not, but pretty much you will. So just use maybe chopsticks or anything that's got a blunt edge to poke those through. If they're still not making a nice sharp corner, then go back in and trim off those edges. Take a little triangle off. And then we've got our cushion cover. Now I like to have that 10 centimetre on the inside because it allows you the cushion to puff out a bit and then without any insert showing through. So I'm just going to insert my cushion and make sure I'm happy. Okay, so we want it nice and fluffy. If yours isn't, then go back to these side seams. Perhaps you didn't give it enough in those side seams, so you could take in an extra centimetre on those sides. But that's looking nice and fluffy, and it's got the pattern is scissors are all over it, so it's my sewing cushion. Now I go to the back here. Okay, now I am very happy with envelope cushions. I like them because they're quick and easy. Now you might want to get a bit fancy on the back here. Okay, so what you could do is take some ribbons and tie some ribbons here on either side. So say I cut that, I tie a piece here and a piece to each fabric and tie some little bows along the back so it really holds it in place. I mean, I think it sits nice and flat anyway, but if you want to get a bit fancy. Or what you could do is play around with different fabrics. You could get a bit arty here. Sorry, I haven't flapped mine down properly. There it is. Okay. And you could perhaps use this as your front and put some fancy buttons along there. Yeah, use that as a bit of a feature as part of the cushion. There is, I know a lot of the upcycled ones, they tend to do things like that. If you're using maybe some old jeans, you could, you know, put some funky buttons on there, and that could be your front, and then the plain, just the plain cushion is at the back of the cushion. Anyway, you could go for it, and I would absolutely love to see what you do. If you've been jazzing up your home, I would particularly like to see that in these times as we are looking for things to do. And yeah, looking to get creative and keep our minds active, keep things fun at home. Okay, thank you so much. Please do show me your pictures. See you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye for now. Namaste.